move on. When the idea is kind of we will display our force and then they will regret ever basically fucking with us. Not only in government, which is already really fucked up, but so I think that our leaders and the leadership are searching for victory images, but I think that's fake. It's a fake victory, and I think it's also quite shameful. One thing that it makes me think is that this can only help Hamas more gain power.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm delighted today to be joined by Ariel Bernstein, who is a former IDF combat soldier who took part in the 2014 war in Gaza. He's now involved in campaigning, activism against the occupation and for peace generally. Ariel, it's great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. In relation to what's going on, it's kind of difficult to say.
Just tell me firstly about your experiences then. You were a soldier back in 2014. What's your kind of abiding memory from that experience?
So I served between 2012 and 2015 in a reconnaissance unit called Sayeret Nahal. Before entering, we had another operation that was quite large, but nobody remembers because what we call Protective Edge, Sukeitan, or the 2014 war kind of overshadowed the other operation that came before, which was called My Brother's Keeper, in which we searched in the West Bank for the bodies, what became known to be the bodies, but were kidnapped teenagers. And during those weeks of being in the West Bank, just to give you kind of the mindset that I entered Gaza with, we were told we're searching for these teenagers, but we were also taking advantage of this moment where there's public legitimacy to display power and more force in the West Bank. So we were basically searching for them, but also demonstrating our presence, our power, and also searching for any clue, for anything suspicious. And so for weeks during this operation, I don't remember exactly how many days, I was a commander and I was choosing homes to enter and to invade and to search, which basically means to enter a house in the middle of the night of a family, flip all the furniture, terrify the family, usually not find anything usually because you're just choosing homes randomly and move on. When the idea is kind of we will display our force and then they will regret ever basically fucking with us. And doing these missions as a commander already started to really bother me, and I started to question the whole mission that we were doing. But then Hamas started shooting rockets from Gaza, and we are told that we're preparing for an invasion into Gaza. And I come with all these questions and a feeling that I'm not very motivated or not really believing in this kind of system that I'm serving. So entering Gaza was already something that was kind of complicated for me because I wasn't sure I believe in it. And every time there is a war in Gaza, we can speak more about what I saw and what I did and what I think about it. But every time this happens, which is quite often, it brings me back to that moment where we crossed the fence into this place that we've never been into and we only heard scary things. So physically, just to answer your question simply, when I see these images, it really has an effect on me every time there's an escalation.
I've heard, I suppose, from senior Israeli politicians talking about things like human animals, that there were no innocents in Gaza.
So it's hard for me to tell, especially even now as an activist, but especially as a soldier, you have no idea about this. But there's a logic behind the way we fight in Gaza. The way I experienced it, and I don't think it changed ever since, is that you tell the residents of a certain neighborhood that you want to fight in, or do you want to conquer, that you're coming in, and they have to leave. They have an X amount of time to leave. So once you warn them, in your eyes, whoever stayed is either actively participating in the war as a Hamas member or collaborating because we told them to leave. So once you warn the population, this area becomes a battleground. It's not a neighborhood anymore, at least in your eyes as a soldier. You did your part, or you did what you needed to do to tell them to get away. So if they stay, it's their fault. and you don't really stop to think about that too much. And most people don't also after they leave the army. And for many in Israel, that's even considered something that's too humane. Like, why are we doing this? When actually it's just a way of legitimizing the area to be a battleground. It's not actually, I don't think it's actually to help people like save their lives. It becomes more difficult to treat the place as if it's just a battleground because you're actually staying in people's homes. At least that's the way it was for me. You start seeing family photos, signs of life of people who live in this place, school books. We heard of a family that one of our units met in one of the homes, and they later died in the bombings from above, from fighter jets. So this kind of idea that everybody is just who stayed is engaged in fighting, and that we're in a battleground. It's hard to keep it when you actually see that you're in a neighborhood. And to your point, that has to do with the dehumanization. I think once you start to question that or to feel like that idea crack, then you have two options. Either you start questioning the whole thing that you're doing, or you have to turn to dehumanization, because then if you don't do that, you're left with a lot of guilt, I believe.
Do you think that IDF soldiers currently in Gaza have vengeance, say identifying Hamas members, for example, but the risk is any civilian in Gaza could be on the receiving end of that?
I think naturally, after seeing what happened on the 7th of October, people, not only soldiers, everybody in Israel might have this feeling that they want revenge. Maybe it wore down by now, but even I maybe felt it to a certain extent, you know? But what's sad and what's different these days is that this kind of feeling and this desire for revenge and this idea that we don't need to make a difference between Hamas operatives and civilians isn't just something that you feel inside and you kind of want to feel, and you might feel ashamed of it. It's completely normalized by the highest ranks, not only in government, which is already really fucked up, but they're, I guess, trying to be populist and to ride this wave of hate. But also you can see this from within higher ranks in the army, which is really frightening. And I can definitely see how certain statements that used to be more considered kind of things that you're not supposed to say, like we need to flatten out Gaza, there shouldn't be anybody left there after we finish this war, or it's about time we finish them once and for all kinds of statements like that have become something that are quite normal around me, sadly, and they become normalized because of our leaders. My sense is, first of all, there's no doubt that many people in Gaza are part of Hamas, and they might even participated in what happened on the 7th of October. It's not like I know who is a terrorist and who isn't. I can't come here and tell you, oh, I know all of these people are innocent and none of them have done anything on the 7th. One thing that it makes me think is that this can only help Hamas more gain power. So I think that our leaders and the leadership are searching for victory images. And I think that actions as like these, like humiliating photos and destructions of huge structures like universities and mosques and these kinds of videos are there to serve that kind of desire for a victory image. But I think that's fake, you know, it's a fake victory, and I think it's also quite shameful.